Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Bart Larongo, a strategic industry advisor for federal at Splunk. Bart, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Anastasia. Great to be here.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Let's start with data strategy across the federal government. In today's environment, federal agencies are inundated with data. And without a clear, unified approach, that data can quickly become fragmented, duplicative. Could you talk about why it's so important and so critical for federal agencies to have that unified data approach, unified data strategy in place? Why is it so important, and what benefits it can bring to mission outcomes?
Yeah, no, I like how you said inundated with data. Generally, what we see in the federal space is there's not a lack of data. It's actually a preponderance of and almost too much data. The challenge that we typically see, though, is that that data is siloed. So with that siloed approach, it's not the fact, again, the data is not available, but without a strategy on how to really unify those silos and bring them together, it's difficult for organizations really to see all of the data. So whether it's IT telemetry, whether it's operational technology, or even business and mission KPIs. So the manner in which they establish a unified data strategy is really critically important, because typically it's not the technology or even access to the data that it's the challenge. It's how it, again, as you posed the question, how do they create a strategy around that? How do they create a people, process, and approach so that they can have that unified view of their environment, their organizations, to really speed decision making? Because of course, having access to the data and bringing that together to make rapid decisions is really the key to a unified data strategy and the key to unlocking the value and the potential from all of the data that an organization has access to.
Yeah, and could you maybe share some examples of how you help agencies move beyond just storing and protecting data to actually extracting value from it?
Well, so I think that's, in my perspective, as a valid federal industry advisor, or just advisory services in general, particularly those that are available at Splunk, what we typically try to advise federal clients about is, again, that they have the data, they need to access it through a unified data strategy. And they need a capability, though, that can really fuse and correlate all of that information, that allows them to ask questions very rapidly, compress the OODA loop, so observing, orienting, deciding, and then acting on that data really faster than, from my experience in the federal government, faster than the adversary. So the adversary is, of course, or the fraudster or the hacker or anyone who is trying to infiltrate those data streams or those organizations, they're moving just as fast, if not faster in some cases, that we are. So the more that we can keep pace, and in most cases what we always want to do is exceed their pace, that's really, again, foundationally unified data strategy, tool and capability that then fuses that information to aid in rapid decision making for positive mission outcomes.
Mm-hmm. And from everything that you're seeing, do you have any advice for agencies how to move forward?
What we would recommend always to agencies, again, so you need to understand your environment, again, unlock those, really break down those silos, bring the data together in a correlated fashion. You have a capability that enables you to spend more time ingesting and then analyzing that data versus the opposite, which would be analyzing then ingesting the information. So you want to bring that data in, be able to analyze it very quickly so that then you can do that, again, faster than the adversary. So I think that the advice is that unified data strategy, capability that correlates and fuses data, breaks down silos, understanding of that data strategy, and then being able to really to ask questions without analyzing first, just because questions are going to come, and we just want to analyze that data rather than spend a whole bunch of time normalizing, extracting, or loading that information into our decision systems.
Sure, and that's, of course, the data strategy is only one piece of it. Agencies operate in silos. So what do you think agencies, what kind of steps could they take to synchronize stakeholders across disparate teams and environment? What are the best practices that would ensure that alignment?
Yeah, so from a best practices or a strategy perspective, and particularly aligning stakeholders, is once you have the data and you have a capability, those capabilities and the data needs to be mapped back to mission outcomes. So why do we have a capability? Why do we have a tool? Why are we using the information? Why is it important to all of the stakeholders? So I think being able to nest and align how those data streams, how the capabilities that are analyzing them, all flow back to what the stakeholders care about, which is generally mission outcomes for their respective business units or mission areas. So I think we need to be able to tie whatever technologies that we're investing in back to how does that deliver mission outcomes for all of the stakeholders. And I think that's really, again, core to that unified approach. Without unified visibility, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we've been talking a lot about efficiency for the past couple of months. And, could you talk about when you're out there, is optimizing the workforce something agencies that are asking you about?
Definitely. So I think in addition to optimizing capability, or something we would call tool simplification or capability simplification, I like to refer to it as capabilities optimization. Much like data, organizations typically have a myriad of tools, in fact, generally too many. So if they're able to see their data as well as see their tools and capabilities, it then helps further align their workforce development strategy. So you can imagine how, we're only able to process a certain amount of information as humans, as individuals. So how can we minimize that, simplify that, so that we can really focus in on a core set of capabilities that aligns us to get after our mission outcomes much faster. And then really in our optimized spend from a tool capability, it also optimizes our spend and time really from a workforce development strategy. So rather than spending a lot of time where perhaps our workforce is maybe a mile wide and an inch deep in capabilities, we can actually be very precise, very deep, very core understanding of all of those capabilities that we're investing in, and again, delivering on those mission outcomes. So understanding the unified data strategy, tools and capabilities that align to them, and then, of course, something near and dear to my heart, after a short 30 years in the service, training soldiers and civilians on tools and optimizing environments, developing our workforce to actually use those tools effectively is really key and core. Because at the core, it's our people. This is generally not technology challenges. We have technology to answer all of our questions, but we have to have the right people and we have to have them focused in on the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe could you talk to some of that and how you're helping upskill the workforce?
Yeah, so I think it all begins with having the right strategy and vision. I think it all comes down to where we want to go, how can technology enable us to get there, and then how can our people, which is really the core to any business process or mission process, how do our people help us get there faster? So I think investing in our people, much like we're investing in technology, optimizing our investments in technology as well as optimizing our investments in people, I think is core. We can't look aside to that. Technology is not going to solve everything. It's actually just going to enable us to do things much faster, but we have to have remain to have humans in the loop that are helping orchestrate, guide, and direct the vision and strategy for any organization.
Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to touch on is consolidating tools, which all fits, but by streamlining the number of platforms in use, organizations can reduce costs, they can eliminate redundancies, and at the same time gaining better visibility into their operations. Could you talk about some of the benefits that the agencies can gain through tools consolidation?
Sure, I think you alluded to it earlier. We're of course in times where every dollar spent is being evaluated. Is it effective? Is it aligned to mission? Is it the right spend? So the manner in which we, again, tools consolidation, we have a lot of duplicative efforts. There's lots of tools that overlap in capability. And in some cases, we're making decisions about tools consolidation for the sake of making tools consolidation efforts. I think that, again, if we think through being able to see ourselves, have visibility of our environments and our operations, understand what tools enable those operations, then we can start to make smart decisions about maybe where we have duplicative efforts and we could actually then delete or streamline a capability. Then once we get to our core set of capabilities, we can really then, are those core capabilities unified in support of our operations? So having a unifying technology that can actually bring all of that information that those tools have and are generating to bear is really key and crucial. So you need something similar to Splunk from a data correlation capability or a data analytic capability that can fuse all of that information so that our teams are not spending time swivel chairing, if you will, from tool to tool, because that takes time. On average, it's 5 to 10 minutes per tool. So if you think of the numbers of tools that organizations have, typically I think it's on average about 30 tools per organization. I mean, very quickly, that's a lot of time spent just logging in, gaining access to information, and then, oh, by the way, you still have to answer the original question.
Any successful use cases that you can share with us?
So we have lots of use cases across both the federal space. So one of the top internet providers, if you will, for the federal government, if you will, or the DoD rather, or Department of War now. That organization actually spent a very concerted effort to inventory all of the tools and capabilities that were in their organization. And what they found is they had many, many tools, hundreds. And so the first was just to inventory them, understand and document what those tools were doing for the organization. Again, then streamlining and looking through, okay, which of these do we need? Which of these are must-haves? Which of these are nice-to-haves? Which of these are, need to have? And then they were able then to very systematically in an organized fashion streamline and optimize their operations and really streamline those tools to a degree where they were actually then able to optimize their operations and deliver more and faster capability to their supported teammates.
What are some of the challenges that you're seeing as agencies are trying to work towards that consolidating of the tools?
I think the biggest thing is really just opening up the aperture. I think that, typically the way that we've functioned, particularly in the federal space, is not only do we have siloed data, but we also have siloed operations. So while, as we move forward to efficiencies, again, we have to become more comfortable really in maybe reaching across the hallway and talking to our teammates on the other side of the hallway, maybe from a network operations perspective. Like we're doing very good maybe from a network operations perspective, we're doing very good from a security operations perspective, and we're doing very good from probably a business operations perspective. But if those operations are all functioning in silos, then I think we'd agree that from an efficiency perspective, particularly if the spend is also siloed, we're probably not optimized from a business or a mission operations perspective, because if they're not talking to each other, if the right hand isn't talking to the left hand, then chances are I might be running the same exact thing, where maybe if we consolidated our resources, which is really something that we would recommend, is how do you consolidate your operations, or resources rather, into a capability that really can then be utilized by many organizations, many operations owners, so that then you can unify that spend, unify operations. Oh, and the byproduct of that is now your mission operations become much more streamlined and optimized.
So far, we've talked about the data strategy, we've talked about collaboration, workforce, consolidating of the tools, but looking ahead, the big picture is the agencies are working towards being more resilient, making sure that they can withstand disruption, they can adapt quickly. With that in mind, what technology strategies will be critical to ensuring that digital resiliency within public sector organizations?
So again, I think we've been talking about it throughout our conversation here today, is again, if you can break down those silos and you have access to all of the data, then that means you actually have the ability to see yourself, see the enterprise. And so a technology similar to Splunk actually enabled one of our clients to actually see into the future, so you can actually then predict outages before they happen. So if you want a technology that can provide you with real-time insights, optimize performance, as well as then really provide you with predictive analytics. So that's really a core capability, particularly to the Splunk technology, but really just that would be a technology in general that an organization would look to invest in. And who's the best in breed in that? And how can that be spread across all of the mission sets, all of the business operations, to really unify and create a true digital resilience structure because as you stated, it's the ability to withstand those impacts. It's going to happen. We're going to be, it could be a change in code internally that has a challenge to the organization. We want to be able to sense and understand that. It could be an external threat. We want to be able to see those coming. Or we just want to anticipate the environment, like in the organization that I spoke of, where we help them see into the future. We want to anticipate those challenges so that we can really prevent the disruption. But if and when disruption happens, how can we respond very quickly? And if you can't see yourself, is it an internal problem? Is it an external threat? Did the power go out? Was it a code change? You want to be able to see all of those facets and data sets, again, not in silos, but from a unified perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, of course, I'll have to ask you about AI.
Sure.
And, could you talk about how you're helping agencies prepare for future threats like, AI-driven threats or quantum error risks, and also how are you integrating AI also into your operations?
Sure. So the goodness and, Splunk, a Cisco company and all, I'm sure everyone's seen in the news really the advancements that we're doing with AI, both generative and agentic. And we really have AI baked into all of our platform capabilities. So, but even before that, you have to have, what is the AI strategy? Again, we talked about the unified data strategy. Well, what's going to be the AI strategy? What do you intend to use AI for? Is it automation or is it AI? And I think that those are, again, thinking through the strategic vision of where you want to go, and then how does the technology, like AI, enable that to, with the human in the loop, to then reach our mission outcomes and our mission goals much faster. So I think that, we taking that deliberate approach, not maybe, rushing to failure, if you will, but actually taking a deliberate approach to how is this capability going to benefit us into the future, and how can then we best then even know that it's doing what it's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So having a capability that's really checking on those systems, monitoring the LLMs, being sure that they're performing as needed and providing responses as expected.
Any successful use cases that you can share with us?
Not to date, but we are developing those technologies and continuing to release updates. So we just had our .conf and talked about how there are future developments as well as current developments, and so looking forward to those use cases we can talk about into the future.
Yeah, all right. And before I let you go, could you talk about your own priorities? Could you talk about what you're focused on into fiscal 2026?
Sure. So I think my biggest thing is, I alluded to it earlier, is really opening up the aperture from really our technology, particularly as a data analytic force multiplier. How do we look at the data? And generally everything is a data problem from my perspective. How do we leverage technologies like Splunk to actually answer data problems really as fast as we can? Again, compressing that OODA loop, delivering mission-oriented decision-making processes and capabilities, and really then helping our organizations be resilient in doing so. And whether it's delivering citizen experiences, whether it's combating cyber threats or existential threats, or even monitoring our own internal health and performance of our environments to be sure that that those are performant. But again, I think it's how do we open up the aperture, really maintain and ensure that all of the capabilities we're investing in are maximized to their fullest capability, and really maybe thinking outside the box a little bit to kind of the art of the possible. Maybe I thought it was for this. This capability was supposed to be designed for this type of use case, but maybe it could be used more broadly, and then again, get back to that optimization and efficiency that we were talking about earlier. Anything
you're particularly excited about?
Really just the future. I think that there's lots of changes, particularly our alignment with Splunk, with Cisco now, mm-hmm. And the capabilities that are being brought to bear with that. I'm really excited about how quickly we can really begin to bring this cutting edge, not necessarily leading edge, but leading edge technologies, particularly to the federal space.
Yeah, absolutely. Bart, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Anastasia. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank today's guest, Bart Larango, a strategic industry advisor for federal at Splunk. I'm Anastasia Obis, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more on the Cyber Leaders Exchange.